Hello everyone, welcome to Beyond the Bath. We're with Bytown Better Bath and shower expert Curtis, who just happens to be my son. And so today we're going to talk about pricing. We're going to talk about material, what are you paying for? We're going to talk about the quality of material that should be installed, that maybe shouldn't be installed. We're going to talk about, the truth about cheaper fixtures and what are the repercussions of getting a good deal on a cheap fixture. And then we're going to talk about how to build trust and transparency in what we're doing and stuff like that. How do you do that? How do you help the client through their renovation journey? Okay. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what goes into the pricing. Like when you're putting a price together, what are you looking for? How can someone keep the price down? And what happens if the price starts getting a little bit higher? What is typically the reasons for that to happen?
So I think a lot of people do have a set threshold of pricing in their head for how they came to such pricing is tough to say. A lot of people have looked into previous renovations they've done and compared numbers that way, but when the reality sets in with today's pricing, it sometimes is a bit of a sticker shock situation. I think for the most part, when we're building an estimate for a customer, we're building it with their dreams in mind and their desires in mind. But when we start to get into the numbers, we oftentimes will start looking into alternatives of different options to kind of keep those budget numbers down. For example, we do get a lot of people who want the most luxurious wall system out there, very high-end marble tile, but the reality of the cost of installation and cost of material tends to drive that price up quite a bit, and into looking into different alternatives such as wall systems that look like marble or similar items like that. So when we're dealing with pricing out a job for a customer, building their bathroom, we do often start with what they're looking for and then find alternative solutions to kind of not only get them what they want, but the budget that they need to be in as well.
Okay. And if you were to give me a percentage breakdown of the wet area, so if we're talking wet area, we're talking tub or shower or wall system, the faucet, and then what would you call the wet area and then the dry area of the bathroom? What percentage of money would it be for the wet area versus the dry area, would you say? Like what kind of percentages? 10% of the budget go to the wet area, 50%?
I would generally suggest, for the most part, about 50 to 65 would be my estimation percent goes towards the wet area versus the dry area. When you're comparing the two areas, oftentimes you won't see tile on just bathroom walls. You do see it occasionally, but it tends not to be a standard thing. We're just looking at paint and drywall, which tends to be a relatively cheap option compared to tile and waterproofing and everything there. And then we're looking at vanity and toilet and flooring. So all those items, for the most part, there's obviously not a toilet in your shower, but there's still a drain inside of there. There's still plumbing that needs to be hooked up. There's the shower base. There's a lot that goes into it. So when you're factoring in the cost of the fixtures and the labor to install them, I would say at least 50% of the budget of the bathroom should be going towards that wet area. And then the remaining, anywhere from 30 to 40% going towards the dry space.
Okay. And then when customers are out shopping and they're looking for product, okay, whether they get it from a wholesaler or they get it from a retailer, what are you finding the products that are coming from box stores, right? So the big box stores, right? And they have really good deal, really good pricing. What do you find is the difference in quality of material for, we'll use a shower for an example. Do you find that the quality of the material from certain box stores is equal to the quality of material that you would get from a wholesaler? And so I'll let you answer that question, and then I'd follow up with another one right after. So do you find that?
For the most part, you can find fixtures that can cross over between retail space and wholesale space. But for the most part, most manufacturers have moved in a direction where they offer certain products as wholesale, certain products as retail. The retail stuff tends to be built more to a price point for the more appealing cost for acquisition, and the stuff that we find at the wholesalers tends to be built more so for long lasting and quality. So, for example, there's a couple examples of shower valves that I could recall that that same shower valve in a retail application, the trim kit is all plastic versus that same trim in a wholesale application is all steel and corrosion resistant and a much better product in the end. So although these two products side by side will look identical, one is made of a plastic that you can feel is not a high grade plastic, and one is of a higher grade stainless steel with a coating on it. Both of which would come at a very similar price point, but one of which goes on sale every so often and is found at the retail stores. So oftentimes you will see that. We see it a lot in the plumbing world as well with hot water tanks, where two tanks side by side, one's much cheaper than the other, they look identical, one's just built better. So the same thing applies for fixtures, for bathrooms and stuff like that. Especially with faucets, we find once you get to the retail space, you can get good deals, but you tend to compromise on the quality of the materials.
Do you find that the labor cost is equal between a product that you would get from a wholesaler or a retailer? In other words, do you find that the amount of time that we would spend to try to get a retail base in is the same as you would necessarily from a wholesale base?
With the timing wise, close but not exact. From a retail space, we'd physically have to go get one off the shelf, bring it to you. There'd be more steps involved in the acquisition of that item. From an installation standpoint, for the most part, they would be similar, if not identical. From retail part for compared to wholesale part. Where you'd really run into your issue is in a warranty application. If something does go wrong, that's when it becomes a big fight through a retailer to try and get warranty on an item, versus through a wholesaler where you would have access to reps and people that can come to your house to look at these problems that work for the manufacturer. So when it comes to an installation standpoint, they tend to be pretty similar. Acquisition can be a bit more difficult. Warranty is really where that shines, going for the wholesale option.
So you don't find that you need to put in more backing or more support in a base, let's say that got a great deal on it, or they got it at a box store where the construction is not maybe up to par to something that you would necessarily get at a wholesaler.
Well, I would say that wholesalers, for the most part, if you're comparing the retail version of the same item to a wholesale version, they're relatively the same when it comes to the installation time. That being said, retail spaces tend to sell lower quality bases than what you would normally find at a wholesaler. A wholesaler tends to carry a higher grade of product. Their base product, let's say, is a higher grade product than what you'd find as a base item at a retail space. So sometimes the great deal that you could find at the local box store is a great deal, but is a lower quality than anything you could find at a wholesale option, and would in fact take more time as an install.
So would you recommend staying with brand names to ensure that if you're buying a particular base, then you would get closer to the same quality that wholesale retail? Or
Yeah.
is that a big deal?
I would say, so the way I always looked at it is, if you're changing a lavatory faucet, they're very easy to get to, and you don't have to renovate a bathroom to change a faucet. So you can kind of get away with the knowledge of it may not last as long, but it's an easy enough fix if it does go wrong, changing out a lavatory faucet. When you're dealing with a shower application or a bathtub application, changing out a shower base involves you taking out the entire showering area in order to get that done in a lot of cases. So that tends to be something where I recommend to somebody, go to the wholesaler, pick up a higher quality base, don't cheap out on the base, because that's where, if you do run into a problem, that's when you're going to have a real big problem. Something's going to have to be taken out in order to accommodate the replacement of that base.
So if you were halfway through the construction phase and you noticed that there was a defect or something got dropped on the shower base, is it possible to repair that shower base, or do you have to rip everything out and start from new?
If it's a good enough quality base, then yes, you can repair it. If it's the one-off kind of cheap stuff that you would find at the box store, there's a less likely chance of that. So if it's a fiberglass with acrylic shower base, for example, higher quality, something with some good backing to it where it didn't shatter as something impacted it, then yeah, you can definitely repair that. There are local companies that can come down, or even manufacturers can come down if it's under warranty to make those repairs.
Okay. All right, so basically the higher the quality, the better the chances of the repairs being done, whether it's being done during construction, whether it's done in a couple of years down the road when normal use and somebody accidentally drops something in there. The better quality of the product, the higher the likelihood of repairing it in place without having to gut the whole bathroom.
Exactly, and that's more crucial when you start getting off out of the white realm and start going into the colored bases. You can get resin bases, for example, that are gray, black, white, a whole bunch of different colors. And the benefit of those is that if you do go with a higher end, you can get a matching epoxy repair kit with it as well, so you don't have to worry about trying to match up colors or match up different shades. So the higher quality the base, the more options you have for repairs down the road.
And how do you go about when you're working with a client or you're speaking to a client? How do you go about showing them the different products and educating them on the different things that are happening, and maybe just walk us through it like a typical introduction to a client and walking through the bathroom and talking about the different things that you guys would go through. Like, what are you trying to do when you go into a client's home, when you meet them for the first time?
So I find for the most part when I walk into somebody's home, more often than not, they have an idea of what they want, but they don't really know. So I find it important to have physical objects of what you're doing, to show them. Shower bases, there's only so much variation. Wall systems tend to be something that come in a wide range of varieties. So sometimes it's important to kind of bring some examples with you, show them, put them in their hands, because once you get certain items in your hand, you could really feel the quality difference. For example, a plastic shower kit versus an acrylic shower kit, they on paper sound very similar. When you put the products in your hand, you can tell there's a very major difference in the quality of those items. So going into somebody's house, going through the items, I find it's important to kind of not only go through the different aspects of their application and what would work best in your opinion for those applications, but put those items in their hands so they can see and make the decision for themselves.
Okay, and do you feel that educating the client is something that's important?
Yeah, I'd say more than 80% of the clients that we would go to for pricing, for estimates and quotes, they don't really have a great idea of what they're looking for. They just know that what they have doesn't work. So educating them on what their needs are sometimes is the best way of figuring out what this bathtub or shower should look like.
Do you have any tools that are available that they could use to be able to get to figure out what type of bathroom they're looking for, or what type of pricing might be in their budget, so they can sort of get some direction on what they should be looking at, that something that meets their needs and their budget? Do you have any type of tools like that?
Yeah, so there's a couple of configurers where we have available to us where you can kind of build your bathroom with different styles of wall systems in there, different setups, door without a door, to kind of get a feel of what things would look like. And then pricing wise, we do have an online estimator with a couple questions kind of floating through on what you're looking for. Once you've narrowed that down, can kind of give you an idea pricing wise where you would sit. So it would be maybe a bit of combination between the two if we're dealing with a person who doesn't quite know exactly what they want, kind of playing around with the configurer of the bathroom to kind of see what things would look like through the Bellastone site, and then going to the Bytown site to kind of play around with some of the options on pricing, adding certain things like grab bars and stuff like that to kind of see where pricing wise things would land.
So someone could get on the website and just plan out a complete bathroom and get it's a rough estimate. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a
general idea. Again, a lot of people are kind of the mindset of, 15 years ago I priced out a bathroom and it landed here, so I'd expect it to be in that same general area, when a lot of times that's not the case. So it's a useful tool for those who are looking to get into the bathroom renovation, looking to renovate their space, but have no idea what to budget for, no idea what to expect. It's a great tool for them to use to kind of get the right headspace and know what things would be costing.
Okay. And maybe you just, we're in a time, I don't think we've ever been in a time where it hasn't been important. I remember when I was younger, I was always, worried about money and how much different things are costing and stuff like that. And today's no different. And so what would you say to someone that said, well, I'd like to move forward, but I got a way cheaper quote? What would you say to that person about cheap quotes? So
everyone has had the story of a job that's gone wrong, in the sense of either somebody or it's happened to that individual themselves. It's not the letter of the law, but oftentimes you will find the jobs that went south where the jobs were, you know what I mean, given to the person with the lowest quote or given to the person with the best price point on the job. Generally speaking, somebody who has a price that is either significantly lower or a large scale lower than the average jobs that you're getting or pricing that you're getting, they're finding that savings somewhere. Either they don't know their numbers properly or they're finding a way of cutting that corner that you're not aware of. So I would always encourage somebody if they're very uneasy about a certain quote they're getting, if you know what I mean, get a secondary one, get a third one to see where you're at. Like I would say that you know what I mean, it's not at 100% of the time, but a very good portion of the time, if somebody's giving you a quote that seems much lower than the rest of the ones that you're getting, there's a good reason for it.
And should the customer talk or ask for documentation to prove that they're insured? To ensure that they're getting quality parts. Is there anything they can do to help protect themselves from let's say a contractor that may not have their best interests in heart?
Yeah, so I the big thing I would say is that you know I mean that research is crucial. More so when you're dealing with a condo application or high-rise application where they will require that renovator to have credentials such as insurance and all that. But little things like that would kind of give the homeowner an indication of, is this a serious company? Is this somebody who's doing this for a living, or is this somebody who's just filling a void in their work life at this moment? The last thing you would want is somebody just filling a void. You know what I mean? They could be here today, gone tomorrow. You could run into problems 6 months from now and they're nowhere to be found. So you want to make sure you're getting somebody who has the reputation, has the staying power, and is going to be answering the phone in 6 months. That sort of thing generally comes with the insurance, the liability, the you know what I mean, all the stuff that you would generally find with a larger scale company.
So vetting that company is critical.
Yeah, exactly. I would say that's a very, very big benefit to a homeowner to do beforehand.
All right. Well, good. I think we've had a very productive talk. I think it went very, very well. Thank you very much, Curtis. And for our viewers, if you guys have any other questions or you want to go over something, please don't hesitate to get a hold of us. Give us a call. We appreciate any questions you may have. Maybe we'll do a video on some of the questions that you know our viewers are looking at or want to provide to us, and they're looking for answers. So looking forward to it. And thank you, Curtis, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you.